Hello, everyone. This is Kevin, the Apptrepreneur, and welcome to the monthly Rideshare podcast. This is the True Uber Advisory Board, and Cecily, you may notice, is not here, and that's because she's got a real job. So she might join us late, but we've got other regulars here, including, for the first time in a while, your driver, Mike. Say hi, Mike.
Hey, guys. How's it going? Good to be back.
And we've also got Mark from Uber Hints.
Hey, everybody, welcome.
And thankfully, none of us say outrageously stupid stuff on Twitter, so this show has not been canceled. Thank goodness for all you listeners. Sorry, that's a bad joke. Google ABC, folks. You'll figure it out. So anyway, we've got a few things to talk about, and even though Cecily might be late, we're going to just jump right into it. And the big topic today, obviously the major one, is that Uber launched a new surge. Now, I believe we have all made videos about the new surge. I've made 2 myself, but sometimes it's good to compare notes. And for those of you who are not aware, the new surge is basically changed to where it used to be they would give you a multiplier for how much money you would make. So like if you were making 70 cents a mile and you got like a 2-time multiplier, you would take that 70 cents and multiply it by 2. If you got it 5 times, you'd multiply it by 5, and so forth and so forth. Well, that is no longer the case. Now they have these zones where if you're in a zone, you will get a flat fare on top of the regular fare. It could be $3, $5, $12. I don't really know what the cap is, but it's a certain amount, with the promise that you might potentially make more on longer trips, the key word being might. Now, there's a lot to talk about this surge, of course, but there's one reason that Uber gave when people asked, why did you change the surge? And Uber's reasoning is that they heard our complaints, they heard how confusing the surge is, and they decided to fix it. So I guess the first fair question we should ask is, was anyone in this podcast, and even in the chat room, I mean, we're going to do the Q&A later, but was anyone listening to this ever confused about surge or how it worked, or thought it needed to be fixed?
No. If I can take this first. The only thing that was frustrating about surge, the traditional surge, is they mentioned that is, hey, when you drive there and it disappears, but people like us, and I'm sure other drivers out there, you inform new drivers, right? Because if you're a new driver, you don't know, hey, don't chase the surge, because yeah, if you chase it, it's going to disappear. But is that on Uber to better educate those new drivers to say, hey, here's a good way to drive, here's one way to do it? So yeah, that's the only thing. It's like, yeah, if you kind of drove towards it and it disappeared, but other than that, hey, guys, 2.0, I know what a 2.0 is. 3x, I know what that is, and it's pretty simple.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement. There's a few other things. I mean, the complaint was never the way the multiplier worked. And if they're thinking that was confusing,
exactly.
Those of you who went and read what they put out, it almost took a college degree to figure out all the complications. But the other thing that I often heard is, well, I'm sitting in the surge. How can there be a high demand when I'm sitting in the middle of it and I'm not even getting pinged?
Yes. Yep.
Which had nothing at all to do with the way the surge was set up as far as a multiplier. And I think that's what drove people to think this thing's a scam. They're trying to, and I don't want to get into too much on what I think we'll talk about, but I think it led people to say, why are they doing this? Why are they trying to drive us to a certain area and then not giving us a ride? But I didn't think it had anything to do with us not understanding how a multiplier worked.
No, I was definitely under the opinion that if you were in the center of a huge surge, and I have been in the center of massive surges many, many times, like we're talking 5, 6, 7 times, and I'm not getting a call. And yeah, I'm frustrated, but I know why I'm not getting a call. It's because it's really expensive on the other person's end. And ever since they included upfront pricing, the likelihood of getting that super high surge diminished quite a bit because people could see upfront what the trip was going to cost. I think what happened with the surge that drivers complained about was we used to get the big surges all the time. but then we started getting less of them. And that wasn't because the surge was confusing. It was because they started telling the passengers how much they were going to be paying. So people had second thoughts all the time. But I was personally under the opinion that the multiplier made sense. It wasn't confusing. And so when they say that they felt it needed to be fixed because the drivers were confused about that, I don't think the drivers were confused about how the surge worked. They were confused about why weren't they getting it.
Mm-hmm.
That's my personal opinion. Would you think that's a fair opinion, or do you disagree with that assessment?
I think you're dead on.
Yeah.
Yep. So with that said, now that we've established that the surge was never confusing, like, you know, we never had this issue, like we didn't understand what it meant. Now another question I have is, like, one of the things that they're promising is that, well, now it'll last longer. Now it won't disappear when you drive in, which confuses me because I've always been kind of like a semi-defender of surge as the necessary evil. In the sense that, yeah, it's annoying. Yeah, it's probably a ripoff for the passengers. But you know what? You kind of need it because the whole point of it is to sense when there's high demand and to lure drivers out to that location at those times when they normally wouldn't be driving. In fact, that's why don't chase the surge has always been a golden rule, because, yeah, when it starts growing, if you start driving towards it, well, so's like how many hundreds of other drivers are heading towards the surge, and it causes the surge to go away because the demand is there to be met now. So my question is, with Uber actually promising, hey, the surge will linger around longer, does that defeat the whole purpose of surge in the first place?
Because it's truly not based on supply and demand. That's what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, yes.
Yeah. Oh boy, that's, see, like, as a driver, you want to kind of say yes, because you're like, well, yeah, you know, if I'm super close. And they gave that example, guys. If you haven't seen this, you can read more about this in Uber's blog. It's titled "Your Questions About the New Surge Answered." You can just Google that.
And we'll have a link. Well, we'll have a link to that below.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, in one sense, you're like, yeah, well, that actually kind of helps me out. And then the other sense, I don't know. I mean, that's a good question.
Yeah. What about you, Mark? Are you there, Mark?
No, I'm here. I was just back at actually rereading the blog to see exactly how they're wording it.
Sure.
And actually, I have the blog up too, just in case.
Yeah, they have not changed anything in their explanation of the blog, and this is what confuses the daylights out of me. If they're still claiming the point of this is to bring you into the busy areas, and that's what they're saying, to make it worth your while to drive to these busy areas, we had $1 a month. How can they keep it open longer? What that is doing, in my mind, is admitting that they've been manipulating it all along. It's one or the other. Either they are manipulating it and creating it artificially, or it's based on supply and demand. You can't have both. You can't have it based on supply and demand and then say, I'm going to leave it open longer.
But surge manipulation is against Uber's terms of service, so clearly they wouldn't be doing that, right? Or is it just okay for them to?
They do the right thing, period.
Oh boy.
And what's interesting is that, you know, it's like they want to have their cake and eat it too almost, because they would, remember, punish drivers, deactivate drivers for taking those surge only runs, and then now they're kind of manipulating surge for themselves. I don't know.
Right. Like, what if we start seeing like surges consistently throughout the night? And some might be saying, well, why is that a bad thing? But I'll get to why in a second. But what if we start having surges that they become extremely predictable? Like, you know, around this time, you can get like $3 on top of every ride. You just know because Uber's like manipulating it because this is typically when the busy hour is. But then you have something unexpected, like like let's say Kanye West rants about Beyonce and Jay-Z for 30 minutes and ends his concert 2 hours early, and as a result, the demand for the concert opens up 2 hours before anyone expected it to, is Uber going to be completely honest that people are paying a lot more money for that area or not?
Yeah. And
like once you start, once you start admitting that you are going to let the surge last longer, it also opens the door like, well, does that also mean, are you going to let the surge not be there when maybe it should be?
Yeah, my concern with this, and I'm sure we're going to talk about Lyft's upfront, prime time, their different heat map as well, is that the unknown, right? Especially with the new Lyft heat map, we can't see prime time. So I'm thinking, okay, well, Uber is going to do a plus $15, right? Plus 15 on my next ride. It's the unknown. Well, what would I have made on traditional surge? I bet it would have been higher. And then Uber, in their blog example, they say, well, those long runs, you may make a little bit less, but those runs are rare. I'm like, well, traditional surge, it would have been maybe a 3x, and I don't know. No, I don't know.
That was fascinating, by the way. I don't know whether to give Uber credit or to just slap my forehead when they admitted in their own blog post that, on longer trips you might make less. What do you guys think of that admission?
Yeah. One more thing about that real quick is that I've said for over a year is, hey, try to drive the high demand trends. Now we can't study the demand trends on Lyft, and I don't think we can. I'm not sure on Uber, but because we can't see that prime time. What was the jackpot? What has always been the jackpot of rideshare? It's been the long run on an exceptionally high surge. I know, Kevin, you mentioned with the upfront pricing that maybe that unicorn is a little bit less now, but hey, there's going to be people with money everywhere. Maybe we can get that jackpot run, but apparently now with Uber, we can't because they're almost taking it away from us.
Right. Yeah. Have any of you gotten any jackpot? I've gotten a few jackpot runs.
That's great ones.
Still remember the $350 surge from Anaheim to Pasadena like 3 years ago on New Year's Eve. That was for like an hour, I made $350. I guess those days are pretty much over.
Over 100. Yeah, I think mine was, oh my gosh, it was $100, a little bit over 100 on maybe a 30, 25-minute run, New Year's.
Yeah. What about you, Mark? Did you get any of these long surge rides?
We don't get that here in Wisconsin. The bonuses and incentives and huge surges just it doesn't rear its ugly head here, unfortunately.
Okay. So I guess that should be like the next fair question then. On a personal level, how much do you anticipate the new surge affecting your earnings if you still drive?
Well, I'll tell you what. One of the things, the problem is what looks good in print. I just don't trust Uber to follow through with it. The problem. But the thing that I wonder about is, it is a little confusing, but when they talk about how does the new surge work, and they say if you are in the surge zone, when you get the ping, even if the rider is not, you're still going to get that surge.
Right.
And they also said if at any point you have to drive through a surge, that you will get the highest surge you pass through. To me, that is insane because I don't know how they're going to keep track of that. I don't know how they're going to keep drivers from manipulating it. If I have to drive 3 blocks north to drive through the $12 zone when I'm in the $6 zone, you better believe I'm taking that detour.
Well, how would we know that though? Like, how would we be able to see that we're driving through the higher surge zone? I'm sure they take that off when you start.
All right. If that's the case, how do we trust them to honor it?
Yeah, that's a bigger question that we're going to get to in a moment. So,
all right. The other question is,
oh, never mind.
If I'm sitting in that surge and it's the whole thing. How do I know? If you're saying they turn it off, how do I know that I'm in the surge when I get the ping? How do I know my riders are in the surge when they get the ping? How do I know I'm traveling through the $6, the $3, the $12 zone? There are so many what ifs that are built into this thing.
There's some serious ethical questions, that's for certain. Go ahead, Mike.
Let me add. Firstly, guys, hey, I'm sure this goes without saying, but why not say it, guys? Thank you for being on this live stream, by the way, everyone that's watching this. We have 52 people watching right now. All of us appreciate it. Yeah, we all appreciate it. We see some familiar faces in here. Uber Birmingham, Uberman Tampa, Kevin Howard. Let's see here. I'm just doing a quick hello to everyone. Part-time driver, M Silver Hammer, Doc Rocks, Andy Wong. A lot of you guys are in here. We really appreciate it. Craigslist, I see it in there as well. Hey guys, something we haven't mentioned yet. This was the killer for me. I mentioned this in my video. This is what caught my eye here. And this is in the blog, guys. If you're reading this, if you're following along the blog, sometimes I don't get surge on my next trip. Why is that? When you reach a surge zone, the additional surge earnings will not be applied to your next trip if you cancel, reject, go offline, change your trip type preferences. Rider cancellations, they say, do not affect this surge. What does this mean? Well, God, I have a strategy on maximizing surge. I did it probably a year and a half ago. And the strategy was wait, see that demand increasing, the surge increasing, and then go online. So now if you drive into the surge zone, you can't go offline, and you can't ignore a ride. So what happens, guys, if the surge is going to go up, but you can't wait. You have to take that ride, otherwise you don't get any surge. The only thing I can think of is you got to hang outside of the surge, watch it from outside, hopefully see it increase somehow, and then go in?
Oh, you'll get a ride before it even gets much higher. I mean,
you can hang outside. You can hang outside offline because it won't matter because you're out of the surge, and then go in because you can't go offline once you're in that surge zone because then you won't get the you won't get.
However, I gotten emails, and now of course we don't have the new surge here yet where I am, so I can't test this out personally. Ironically, even though I so far hate this new surge, this would be enough for me to go back online to drive to see how it works. But according to at least 3 viewers that I have sent me emails, you actually can't view the surge unless the app. Like, let that sink in a little bit. Like, you can't, like those days that I had where I would be waiting at home at 1:30 and I just kind of had the app open. It wasn't on, but it was open. And I'm watching the heat map grow and grow, get redder. And then at one point, it will finally be like, okay, tap online. Apparently, you can't do that anymore.
Now, what does my question is, what does the rider see? Does a rider see the surge zone?
I don't think the rider has ever.
Or do they only see it when they request a ride?
The way that they changed it a while ago, and I believe there's no reason to tweak it any more than this, is when the rider used to call, it would be like a little surge symbol next to it.
Right.
Since then, they just give a price.
Yeah.
They just show you the amount, and underneath the amount, it might say prices are higher because of high demand, but that's the only indication that you would be paying the surge. Otherwise, I have to give them a little bit of credit. They covered up the surge real well, all things considered. I
don't even know if they show that anymore. They may just have the little I for info, and then if you click that, then it shows you the per minute per mile. I don't know, because I used it yesterday. I used it Uber yesterday. I don't even remember it saying anything, like if it was searching or not. Everyone's in the dark here, apparently, drivers and passengers.
Well, Mike, one thing I want to say about your comment about wanting to wait before you move in, they do say the rider or the driver can be in the surge. So I guess if I'm sitting in the surge, even if I get pinged from outside the surge, the way I read it, I will still get that surge rate.
You will, yeah.
So it's not that big a disadvantage that you have to wait outside the surge. If I'm in it, I should get the surge amount regardless of where the ping comes from.
You will, right.
But
well,
I think
then it's not that bad a deal if it actually works that way.
But I think Mike's issue was that, let's say he gets the surge zone, because we've gotten to surge zones that started at 1.4, then used to go to 2.0, and you want to hang out just a little bit more for that 3.0.
Yeah,
to build it.
I think that's where this, I believe that's what you're saying, right, Mike? That's where this throws a wrench in that plan.
You can only go online once. You got one shot, because so you can be offline, and then that's it. Once you go online, you have to take that next one. Well, hey guys, what if it's like a 4.2 passenger? We didn't even think. I was thinking about that too, because I would weed out my requests as well. If I was in the bar area and it's a 3.5, I could be super picky because there's tons of passengers. So now, not only do you have to take the surge that's current if you go online, but hey, if that person's like a 4.2, then that's what you're getting.
Right. And again, one of my biggest concerns is, and again, I wish someone would send me a video so I could confirm this or not, but I mean, by removing the surge altogether, unless you go online, that severely limits the driver's ability to strategize on a Saturday night, which I believe that's half of the point. And of course, we'll continue with all these changes. I think all the changes they made to the surge was basically just to benefit Uber, not to benefit us. But I think this takes. But I guess the next big question I should ask is.
Could I interrupt for a minute before you do?
Sure, go ahead.
I do wonder about when they. Well, go on. I'll wait because this might come up later. I'm sorry. Continue.
So, my question is, does this remove enough? Because right now Uber's being hit with, so many things out where they're finally being forced to admit that their drivers might be employees because of the lack of control. Does changing the surge itself take away enough control that we are less independent contractors now? Because we have.
This is exactly what I was just going to say. So I'll pay you the $5 later. That's just it. They are, I think that it's working the opposite because they are taking away more information and more choices we can make. They are, in essence, telling us exactly how we have to operate. You have to accept this ride. You have to be in this area. But the more restrictions they put on us, that is more controlling how we work. I don't think it's giving us more autonomy.
I didn't think I really knew how to answer that question, but Mark made a great point that really kind of made me think and pretty much agree is like I just mentioned is, hey, you can't ignore it. You gotta accept it. You gotta be in the zone. Here's how it works. Yeah, I mean, again, I can't really say much more than that because I don't know the legal side of it, but everything that they're presenting, hey, so.
Yeah. So, and now we will talk about one of the, at least in my opinion, few nice things about it, at least in theory. But of course, it comes with a big asterisk because one of the few nice things is that, hey, if you're in the surge zone and you get called outside of it, you will get the big surge. Or you'll get a surge even if you're in the surge zone, which it's like, okay, that seems really nice. But my question is, will Uber's algorithm filter that out, like, to start bringing people from outside the surge zone in now? Because Mark, you say, and Uber's kind of said this, that, yeah, if you pass through the surge zone, you'll get the surge. But what if you're outside the surge zone? It's not marked as a surge. You pass through the surge zone and then you get to them and it's a surge. Will Uber pay you for that? And if they don't, will the algorithm set it up in a way that will favor the people outside the surge coming into the surge?
That's the way I read it. But the problem is, how do we confirm it? And how do we, if we feel we get cheated, how do we address it? As is, they are so blatant about not paying us when we do things like referrals. You think that anyone's going to honor a $12 surge? I'm not convinced.
No. Yeah, I'm not convinced either. And yeah, because I personally think what's going to happen is that when the surge zone starts popping up, they're going to start calling people from outside the surge zone because they don't have to pay them the surge. But they will charge the passenger a surge. Just my thought,
Well, we have no way of knowing. It's always been my contention. I don't know if this is even going back to the old days. This is even more simplified. Just keep it a straight percentage across the board. And Uber has been moving away from that. They've been having upfront pricing and all this gobbledygook. All they have to do is keep it a straight commission. When they took away the went from 20% to 25, at that point they could have made it a straight commission, and they're still walking away with 5% more. But they have all of these little twists and turns and all the what I call the slippery zones. It's all designed to make people not understand it. It's sort of like our tax code. If you make it as flat tax, everyone understands it, and that's what everyone's afraid of.
Right, and yep, and it's not like there's going to be a whole lot of class action lawsuits in the near future unless certain laws get rewritten thanks to the Supreme Court, which that came awfully close to being a topic on this week's episode, but it kind of reaches way beyond rideshare, so we're kind of staying away from it. Let's shift gears to not Uber, Lyft's primetime, because of course when Uber does something, Lyft does something, and what's really sad is that you would think Lyft would just want to ape the good things Uber does and not ape the bad things. Like they saw that Uber's getting really hammered with this new surge by the driver. So, but then Lyft they not only took it a step, they took it a step and then a mini step, because not only did they introduce a upfront prime time, but they have taken away the notifications that you have a prime time, which that was my biggest complaint about them for years. And when they finally started doing that, that was great. It was like, oh, wonderful. I can finally see that I'm on prime time, and now they've taken that away and they're doing upfront prime time. And theirs, I'm going to admit, definitely confuses me, because you see a dollar amount with a plus sign, and so far no one's been able to actually explain it to me properly, and Lyft doesn't have anything explaining it. Mike, are you familiar with this at all?
Yeah, I'm taking a look at it right now in my app. We have it here in San Diego, guys. I think they took away the actual prompts, but I still have a screenshot. Yeah, it says earn a ride bonus, enter the zone to earn a bonus on your next ride. So I think it's kind of similar, because Uber said on those long trips we were talking about that, yeah, it'll be plus 15 on your next ride. But if it is a longer ride, you will get more, but they didn't say how much more, how it's measured. So I'm guessing it's the same with Lyft. It's, $8.53 plus. Go ahead.
Yes. Mark, you had some interesting thoughts, like when Uber and now Lyft say, hey, for longer trips, you might get more. And you made a good point, like, what's the trigger and what does that mean?
Well, there were a lot of, and like I said, I call those slippery zones. There was so many outs for them. You might get an increase for a longer trip. What constitutes a longer trip? Is it longer in miles? Is it longer in minutes? How many miles? How many minutes? How much more might you get? There are just so many unknown variables that putting something like that out in their document is almost useless, because it does us no good. What are they going to give me, an extra 50 cents? And then they can say, hey, we honored our commitment on a $50 ride. They're not telling us what that algorithm is. And without that, it might as well not exist.
If I can add to that.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add, again, guys, on the Uber blog, let's see what Uber says verbatim about this. They said, how does surge work on long trips? The surge dollar amounts shown in the map are the minimum you can earn on a surge trip. When you complete a longer surge trip, you'll often see your surge amounts adjusted with added amounts. Now, listen to this. These added amounts will vary based on time, distance, and the rider price of the trip. We add these surge amounts to ensure you're earning for your extra effort and receiving a meaningful portion of the surge rider price. But hey, like Mark just mentioned, how is that measured? What's the trigger?
Yeah, and what is often in their minds. Like often might be, well, 10% of the time. Also, geez, I mean, oh, we'll pay you based on mileage or distance. Geez, it kind of sounds like a multiplier.
Remember the extra pay you'd get for the long pickup? Drivers did it the same thing. Drivers were like, well, when do we start getting paid for the extra long pickup? How much is it? And then we finally got clarification. I think it was like what, after, I can't even remember now, after 8 or 10 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, and I've done a couple of the long pickups things, and I think the most I got was $2 extra for driving 25 minutes to pick someone up. Otherwise, it was most of the time 25 to 75 cents.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, but of course, Uber advertised like you were going to get $5 every time.
Sure, right.
So I don't know. I mean, this honestly sounds like the PayPal clause. And for those of you who are not aware of what the PayPal clause is, whenever you file a dispute with PayPal, they of course will try to get your money back from the other person that you're filing the claim with. Now, they can only get back the money that's in the person's PayPal account. So if they've got nothing in the PayPal account, you don't get anything back except a penny. And the reason you get a penny back is because PayPal guarantees you will get some of your money back in all your disputes.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's that's just what this sounds like with Uber to me. Like, it's like, well, you will often get what's due, but I guess, just depends on our mood. Is it 4th of July? Is it BART hour? Did somebody lose a bet on the Beanie Baby craze? I don't know. Just whatever we feel like, we'll decide whether you get that extra money.
You know what's happening? It's kind of interesting. Is like, think of all the price changes that Uber's made. A lot of, especially now, they're so vague, and Uber has a nice, 1 month or so window, and nobody knows. But then drivers start noticing. They take screenshots that spreads throughout the community, and then we start to be more aware of what's actually being paid. And then some drivers may get upset, and the whole circle repeats. They change something, and it's vague. There you go.
Yeah, I guess we could do this as the final question, because I don't, unless there's any other points you guys want to bring up about it. I think I've gone over most of my concerns. Okay. Were there any you guys had that we haven't addressed?
Not on my end.
No, it's so vague. It's one of those things. How do you ask a question if you don't know what to ask? Because they don't give us enough information to ask an intelligent question.
Oh, right. So I guess here's the next logical question then. Do you think they'll lose a lot of drivers over this?
No.
Yeah, not in the immediate. It's going to take probably at least a month or so. In the markets that it is live in.
Right. Yeah. And this is where, unfortunately, Uber's very sneaky. Some people are acting as if this is a fairly new thing, and it's not. In fact, I made my first video about this new surge back in August. So this isn't close to being new, but Uber, they roll it out slowly. They let the couple markets become chaotic. They let it settle out, and then they spread it out a little bit more. And that prevents total meltdown. And this was one of the reasons why, I'm going to be honest with all my listeners, I was telling people, you want to boycott Uber now. If this really concerns you, you want to, stop driving now and let them know that you're not happy about this before it gets to your market, because this is just how they work. You want to let them hurt before it hits before it reaches big, but nobody believed me. They're like, well, it's not my market yet, so it doesn't bother me. And now I'm getting people saying like, oh, man, it came to my market. What do I do? It's like, honestly, I don't think there's really much you can do. It's at your market now.
Yeah, guys, just so you know, for the Uber surge, if you're in Charlotte, Cincinnati, Oklahoma City, Phoenix, Rhode Island, and San Antonio, you currently now have the new Uber surge. And those are the only markets it's live in right now.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the only markets, but they.
Yeah.
Well, I guess one more question. How many people do you think are going to send Uber that survey and tell them how much they hate the new surge that you think Uber's going to read?
You mean that thing that they put in the
Apparently,
blog when they said, you're important to us, we listen to you? Is that the survey you're talking about?
hey, they said in the blog we're important. They've made a commercial about how important we are, so clearly it must be important. Let's just write to them. I mean, they should fix this, right?
In one of the app updates, remember, they allowed you to give direct feedback. And the big announcement that we had a live stream for, where 5,000 people watched it, was a new driver app, which, by the way, I haven't even seen anything about that new driver app that we didn't need.
Yeah, what happened to that app?
Right?
Did it disappear?
My gosh.
Like, boy, all that, we all know that stuff was for the investors.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I do have one other question, since you're talking about that survey. It opened with, we had a roundtable in your city. And who's been hearing about these round tables they had in all these cities? I sure haven't.
Nope. I remember that. Yeah, it caught my attention too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they had like a roundtable discussion about with drivers about this, and it's like I doubt it. I mean, they didn't even have pictures to back that one up. I think they just decided to do it, and it's like, oh yeah, we talked to drivers, and it's like, really, the YouTube comment disabling Uber, you talked to drivers? Yeah.
Yeah. What does it all go back to that one thing they had in January, and are they going to use that for the next 2 years? Well,
at least until the IPO.
It's your supposition that they're not going to be here in 2 years. So why am I asking, right?
Well, I'm leaning on that a little bit. Unfortunately, I honestly, I mean, I will give Darake this much credit. He did start reversing their losses a little bit, so they might not be as doomed. But then the the press has not been a whole lot better. In fact, my favorite one, and this seemed like such a Travis Kalanick move, was for him to get on TV and say, yeah, we're going to resume the self-driving car testing in California and Pittsburgh. And it was like, well, California kicked you out because you didn't renew your license with them. So they clearly don't know anything about that. And then the mayor of Pittsburgh apparently had a press release where he wasn't aware that you were even doing that. So
he lambasted them. That was pretty funny. I haven't even done a video on that, but I thought that was pretty hilarious.
Oh yeah, I did a video about that. I even had a flashback and everything. It was wonderful, the tricks of editing. But anyway,
the great thing was when they said we're moving out of Arizona, and I'm thinking to myself, you got your butt kicked out of Arizona. What do you mean we've made the decision to leave Arizona?
Oh yeah, they were totally kicked out. They want to save face. That's what they want to do. So it's it's like I mean, it was almost like when when an actor went on a drunk rampage on Twitter and on TV, got fired by a big network, and then Charlie Sheen, because some of you thought I was going to say someone else, announced he was leaving 2.5 minutes. Like, you didn't leave, you got fired. You got fired. They had a press release. The mayor of Arizona sent a public letter to Uber saying you are effectively not welcome here anymore. And then Uber's like, oh no, we weren't kicked out. We decided to end our operations. It was.
Are they actively working with autonomous cars anywhere right now? That anyone knows?
I think they're actively working with stupid people, but I don't know about the cars.
Well, unfortunately, that might include 3 people who are doing a podcast right now, because we're all still driving, right?
Speak for yourself. I haven't driven in a couple months.
I'm actually looking at other stuff right now.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still doing my Monday morning 4:30 runs to see if I can establish a pattern in Milwaukee. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it's my new thing, my new gig.
It's funny because I saw that video and I was kind of thinking to myself, that kind of reminds me when I did the airport runs in the morning. Mm-hmm. But then Surge was pretty consistent, and the trips were consistently long for the most part. And with new Surge, I don't even know if I can make that work anymore to my benefit.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I want, that I've been saying, is some kind of sustainability, predictability. Because, when I started, it surged every day, weekdays, at night, and there was predictability. I knew when I was hitting the road, it was going to surge like 2x or higher, or after a year, I at least knew it was going to surge 3x or so on the weekends at 2 a.m. So I was out there every single weekend. Going back to that Lyft heat map, the updated Lyft heat map, I have zero predictability now. So I'm looking at other revenue streams that have more predictability because we all want to maximize our time. So why would I do this new Lyft system with this unpredictable heat map? By the way, guys, if you've seen this new heat map from Lyft, I have not even seen the ride bonus zones. I've seen them so rarely, which basically means there's like less to zero prime time anyway. I don't even see those maps anymore.
Yeah, so I guess we'll ask one more question on the topic before moving on to the next one, although Lyft is a good segue. What will it take for you to stop doing rideshare? When's enough?
Mark, you want to take that one first?
Well, I think that we are kind of in a weird situation because even as much traveling as I do, I drive an awful lot. Simply because, if for no other reason, I feel I have an obligation to the viewers of my channel. I don't want to, to be a poser and sit out there and talk about Uber and not drive on a regular basis. So part of my incentive is to be the voice of the people that come to get information from me. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know if my perspective is the average driver perspective. And I think the average driver is online with us right now.
But Mark, I have noticed at least one interesting thing about your videos in the last month. You no longer say, hey, do you want to give Uber a try? Use the referral link below. You don't say that anymore. Maybe I'm incorrect, but I don't think I've heard you say that for a while.
I haven't said that in a long, long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I wonder why that is.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, let's talk about it.
No, you know what? To be honest with you, I stole a page out of your book. And you'll also notice that in place of that, I'm running the information bar on the bottom of the screen.
Yes, the information bar. I got that from Mundane Matt. So
we're all stealing from each other, right?
Yeah. Well, people hated that information bar when it started. Now nobody says anything about it. Mike, yes. I will now refer the question to you.
Yeah. Hey, while I haven't quit, I'm heavily moving the ratio of like where I spend my time, right? Like I just mentioned, I rarely drive rideshare as it is now. Too much is changing. Like I mentioned, there's too much unpredictability. So I'm looking at other revenue streams. I did a video on the Lime scooters, on Bird scooters, on getting paid to work with that. I'm looking at, hey, Kevin, we had someone ask about this. I don't know if you're looking into this. Are you looking into Rapify?
I am using Rapify.
Ah, you already use it. Doc Rocks had a question. He wanted to know how Rapify is going.
I've got some update videos coming. There was a little bit of a snag. I will say this about Rapify. If I could use it during Uber and Lyft, it would help a lot because I have used it for Postmates and Caviar, and my earnings have increased dramatically thanks to it because it's adding more money on miles and stuff. So if you could do it with Rideshare, you could make an extra $50 easily or whatever your minimum cap plan is, and that would be great. But, well, my car inspection was due and Uber and Lyft wouldn't pass me.
I was going to ask about that. Now. I'm actually, I'm looking into Rapify myself. Guys, if you don't know what Rapify is, as the name implies, you get paid to have your car in part or fully wrapped by an advertiser. Upwards of, they advertise $200 to $300 a month, lower if you get smaller wraps. Kevin, I thought, I was under the impression that you would be allowed to have that when you do rideshare.
Apparently you're not. You are not allowed to have, according to the terms of service, you are not allowed to have advertisements on your car that are not approved by Uber. And granted, mine is a very ironic wrap. My wrap is 24-hour fitness. So
okay.
You know,
cool.
I guess I could understand Uber's position. You don't want to be picking someone up who's only 2 blocks away to come with a car with a fitness thing, pretty much screaming, "Hey, you lazy bum, walk home." But
that's interesting, huh?
Yeah,
I didn't know.
But yeah, apparently they don't. Which I actually, and this is what one of my videos is going to be about. I kind of got into a very, very heated debate with the Uber Greenlight Hub person. Not so much the Lyft people, because their inspectors are pet boys, but the Uber Greenlight Hub person I got into a very, very heated argument with, because I pointed out that as an independent contractor, my car is my business, and as my business, you do not have the right to tell me how to decorate my business. And if the business causes me to lose money, that's my choice. And in fact, it doesn't appear like it did hurt anyone. And to my knowledge, nobody complained about the Rapify thing. In fact, if anything, it made it a lot easier for people to find me, because if they called, I said, keep an eye out for the 24-hour fitness car.
Yep.
And I mean, they thought it was strange, but once they saw the car, they knew instantly.
Yeah.
It was way more useful than the color bar that Lyft gives me.
You know, you just made a great point. And it keeps going back to this, but the more that they try to control what we do, how we look, how we act, how we perform, where we show up, the more they start looking like employers. And you just made a fantastic point. They're going to tell me what my car looks like.
Yeah.
How does that spill over to Uber Black then?
What's next? One of my cars is white. Will Uber consider that, like, you know, I'm being facetious, of course, like, hey, that's racially incentive, so you got to change it to green? I mean, where does it end?
I don't know. Maybe we'll have to get rainbow colored cars.
Again, I've been looking at Rapify, and I don't agree with that whatsoever, because if it makes sense, I would absolutely drive Uber and Lyft a little bit more. But if that's the case, that I can't even believe they did that, because, hey, they can't really say how you decorate the inside of the car. And there's been debate about if drivers are allowed to have, if you guys remember, guys, for you guys watching too, there was controversy, probably almost 2 years ago, about drivers that would have advertisements inside of their car. And Uber basically lost, I don't know if it went to court, maybe it did, but they lost that decision where drivers were allowed to have advertisements in the car. So I don't agree with that whatsoever, especially as someone looking at Rapify, that they told you that.
Right. And thank goodness Postmates and DoorDash and all these food delivery places don't really inspect the vehicle, because you know, the customers doesn't care the quality of your car. They just want the food to get there. So with food delivery, that's not Uber Eats, because you still need to have your car inspected for Uber Eats, I think. Although, you know, you can tell me if I'm wrong on that. I think you do. But yeah, so I make more money on Postmates now, and I've been pretty much using that money to invest more in the stock market recently. I'm kind of getting into that with Robinhood. But yeah, Rapify would have actually helped a lot. I mean, a lot of Uber and Lyft drivers who just need that little extra money. It'd be really nice if they could. It's a shame they can't, though. If you really want to do it, folks, I guess the best thing I can advise, wait until you just do your newest inspection and then sign up for it, so that you have a full year before you, because, you know, the other annoying thing is, essentially, to get back on Uber and Lyft, I'd have to have them take the wrap off the car, go get the car approved, and I'd have to go and have them put it back on, and it takes a day to do that. So they're really just wasting my time at that point. They're wasting everyone's time. So I don't know. But anyway, control, you know, taking things away. Apparently, we're not the only ones who question if that's morally right, because San Francisco, where Uber and Lyft are headquartered, had actually demanded, I don't know if this is like a subpoena or whatnot, but they are demanding Uber and Lyft actually show what the drivers are making to ensure that they are in fact independent contractors. Let's see here. Where's the article? I had it up had it up here. Oh dang it! I lost it. One second, folks. Let's see here. Uber, San Francisco, and this is why we're not on Sirius. So, yeah, according to the San Francisco Chronicle, a legal push by the ride-hailing company's hometown of San Francisco could lead to the drivers becoming employees rather than independent contractors. City Attorney Dennis Herrera subpoenaed the companies. Okay, so they have been subpoenaed on Tuesday for records of driver pay and benefits, as well as their classification as independent contractors rather than employees. And the move follows a groundbreaking California Supreme Court decision that makes it harder for companies to claim that gig workers are not employees. Quote, San Francisco's laws help ensure that employers provide a fair day's wage for a fair day's work, Herrera said, adding that laws also guarantee benefits like sick leave, health care, and paid parental leave. Quote, we are not going to turn a blind eye if companies in San Francisco deny workers their pay and benefits. Uber, of course, declined to comment. So, that might even kind of, funny enough, bring us back to the new surge, as we were debating for a long time, like, well, what's the pay? How does it work out? What triggers this? And, it seems like even San Francisco are like, yeah, how does the pay work? So what do you guys think of this move by San Francisco?
Well, I think it's a step in the right direction. There's for anything to open, there has to be a test case. And it looks to me like this is the test case. The problem is, California in general is viewed in a different light by most of the rest of the country. And I'm not sure that it would have a wide-reaching effect, regardless how it turns out. But the fact that they're digging into the records is a good thing, because once that happens, those records may possibly go public. And that'll help us a lot, seeing, how they're paying us.
Yeah, what about you, Mike?
I don't know. I'm still trying to just understand the entire situation. So Uber and Lyft have both been subpoenaed to give over driver benefit and pay info. Am I understanding that correct?
That is the case, yes.
Okay. I'm thinking of that MIT study. I'm thinking of like, okay, well, it's kind of a pretty clear picture of actual data of how much drivers are making. That kind of points me back to, I guess the only thing I'm thinking about is finding an actual average pay for drivers, and I guess determining if that's enough, if drivers are being paid fairly.
Yeah, my question is, like, when these records are brought over, what does that necessarily mean? Like, if 56% of the drivers are making less than minimum wage, does that create a problem? Like, that's the one thing about this that isn't clear. I mean, so far they've just subpoenaed the records and the pay statements, but we don't know what they're looking for necessarily, or what they hope to accomplish. I'm assuming that what they're looking for to start with, and probably because of the MIT studies, is whether or not they're making minimum wage, because if they're not, well, that is a huge problem, because, I mean, and we've had this debate before, particularly with the Lyft driver who left the pilot in the parking lot, where one of the debates, of course, was, well, should you actually do that? But the other side of the debate was, well, but should he work for an hour for less than minimum wage when legally you're not supposed to? So it would just be interesting to find out.
But you see that the sticky wicket here is minimum wage does not apply to independent contracts.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
No, you're right. It doesn't. But, and that's the thing. I wonder what they're looking for. Like, I'm wondering, like, are they going to look at like the receipts, and are they going to look at like the difference, like how some of these rides Uber's taking sometimes up to 80% of the fare are? Is that going to be like a trigger for San Francisco to do what I'm assuming they have something in mind that they want to do. I obviously don't know what it is, but yeah, just like what are they looking for? I mean, the article continues. The city wants a complete list of drivers who worked in San Francisco since 2015 and information on their hours, wages, and benefits. It seeks documentation on how they are classified and proof that those classified as independent contractors, virtually all drivers, meet the criteria set by the California Supreme Court decision. Again, that's nice to know that that's kind of what they're looking for, but still, what does that mean exactly? Like what? Like, I mean, we did discuss this. Mike, you weren't here for our discussion about the Supreme Court ruling, were you? That was your personal driver is here with us. Geez, I should have texted him to see if he wanted to sub for Cecily again. He's kind of our permanent sub for her, and he might have been able to clear this up a little.
He's ready on the bench. Call me in, coach.
Oh, did he say that?
No, he didn't. No, I'm sure he would. I'm sure he would.
Oh yeah. So, but like, yeah, I mean, but Mark made an interesting point. Like, yeah, California ruled this against one company, I believe it was Dynamex, and said that I'll believe it when I see change happen. And it looks like someone in California seems to be doing a follow-up since that ruling, because it's probably not a coincidence that this happened not only shortly after the Supreme Court ruling, but very shortly after the new surge went live in other states and drivers started complaining about what's this going to do to my finances when it comes here. So, obviously, neither Uber or Lyft have handed anything over as the time of this recording. So I don't know. I mean, I know Uber and Lyft technically have to comply at some point, but how hard do you think they're going to fight this before they actually do that?
Not as hard as they fight everything else when they have to give away, when they're asked for their private info.
They're going to fight it to the tune of $4.5 billion because they don't mind losing that much each year.
Oh, apparently, yeah. No, not even every year. Sometimes every few months. So let's see. Is there anything anything else in this article that we should but it should be noted that the California Supreme Court ruling is not yet finalized, so that probably buys Uber and Lyft a little bit of time before they have to before they have to share this information. But one of my questions throughout all of this is, considering how much heavier the government is pushing for regulation, they're pushing, and it's pretty obvious that it's in response to Uber and Lyft continuing to be slippery. They skew a little here, they slide a little there. They keep slipping and sliding with the rules, the pay, being honest about exactly how the rules and the pay are working. And my question is, geez, guys, why don't you just play fair a little bit and avoid some of this? You don't have to go down this path.
Yep. Yeah. And with the, it's more so with the upfront pricing and all that. And like Mark said earlier, with the commission rate, right? Commission rate, why can't it just be a clean 20, 25%? It was simpler, cleaner in the past. Why are Uber and Lyft, probably more so, a lot more Uber, getting more and more slippery? And just dodging, it seems.
Well, I think the answer is obvious. It's because they want to make money. I mean, the one thing we didn't really discuss in the new surge thing was considering Uber wasn't going to stop charging the multiplier, how much money of the surge are they getting? How much more of it, should I say, are they getting than are we getting? That's like the one thing we didn't discuss. But I think it's pretty obvious that's why they continue to be slippery like this. But I mean, it seems like there should be a good business model in here, because you have a lot of people who want rides, you have a lot of people who want to drive, and there should be a price and commission point that Uber can come up with where they are making money and so are the drivers, and everybody's happy, and no one has to gripe to Governor Jerry Brown or President Donald Trump about not being paid fairly.
Yeah.
It seems like there should be a middle ground, right?
That's what I've been thinking. Why can't it seems kind of easy enough too. It's like, hey, Uber, you know you can make more money if, you know, maybe rates were higher, commission was lower, whatever it is, and your drivers will be happier. You wouldn't have 96% turnover.
Well, that's just what I was thinking, Mike. You know, if they would just be fair with people, people would stay in this for the long haul. And experienced drivers are better drivers. They're the ones that stick around are going to know how to get around the city. They're going to be more efficient. They're going to work more regular hours, and they're not going to be pushing for this employee thing. All they have to do is be fair and honest and upfront, and so many problems would disappear, but they don't see it.
Is it Walmart? No. I'm sorry. Is it Uber's insistence on the Walmart effect? Is it these companies' insistence on, hey, there's no other way for us to structure our business model other than the Walmart effect? We got to price super low and then just book a ton of rides, and they will not change that. I don't know.
I think it might have more to do with the Amazon effect, where the new mentality is truly like it used to work. Like, hey, you open a store, and once you start making money, you open another store. And now, ever since Amazon became like the Wall Street darling and has never been profitable, have always lost money, the philosophy has been like, grow at all costs, even if you lose billions of dollars. As long as you're growing, that's a success. Maybe it's a little of both, really, if we get down to it, because I kind of see a little bit of that in both. But, you know, since we're talking about cheap rides, another article from Quartz asks the question, are super cheap rides making Lyft less reliable? And I think this could be attributed to both Uber and Lyft, where the guy was complaining how he was trying to get like a ride from Lyft, and there was like 9 minutes. And I guess for whatever reason, one driver canceled him. So another guy was matched and seemed to be on his way. But then mysteriously, the rider changed again to someone closer, and ultimately it took like 30 minutes for him to get his ride. He gets into the car. Car smells like feet, apparently. Is really messy. 3-mile trip. He's charged $4.75, which I'll give him this much credit. He does acknowledge that the driver probably can't be making much off of that. And he has noticed that, you know what, 3 years ago, Lyft and Uber was a high quality service. Like, well, he's specifically talking about Lyft, but I'm going to say Lyft and Uber because really they're the same thing. They use the same drivers, and how like the cars would come clean, the drivers would be a lot nicer. And now it's like he gets all of these really dirty cars with non-communicative drivers, and there's no professionalism in it at all anymore. And he's paying these really admittingly cheap rates, but he said, I would probably pay $3 more for my ride for a short ride if the ride was nicer. And so his question is, has Lyft becoming cheaper actually affected the quality of the product?
Absolutely. I think so. And
hey, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
I'm just echoing what you said. No doubt about it. I mean, you have, and I don't want to sound like an elitist or a jackass here, but you've seen some of those people in the wait lines. Leave it at that.
Yeah.
Elaborate what you mean by the wait lines for our listeners.
I'm talking about like waiting in the queues at the airports and that sort of thing. I mean, you know, some of these people look like they just drag themselves out of a 24-hour bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, personally speaking, when I first started doing Uber, and keep in mind, this is why I think people watch my videos, because I've been around long enough to know what it was like back then when I first started doing it, and I was making like over $2 per mile. I actually remember getting a lot more car washes. I remember getting the oil change when the maintenance required light started blinking. Like once that happened, go straight to get the maintenance done. And I wasn't giving out waters, I was giving out sodas. I was giving out bottles of soda. Now, granted, it was strange. You would think people would want a glass bottle, pure cane sugar bottle of Mountain Dew. Not a lot of people actually took them. They just thought that was neat that I did it. Right. One person who did take it did leave like a comment like before badges, 5 stars, and said he gave us the best Mountain Dew in the world. And I've actually saved that comment on my hard drive. I thought it was so funny. And as it went on, I have to admit, I definitely, when it started going lower, the sodas were the first thing to go. Yeah. Because it was an expense that I could no longer justify, especially without tips. And I remember, like, I didn't get the oil change as fast. I waited until the light was solid before I got the oil changed. And maybe even waited a little longer after that. And I sure as heck did not clean the car as much. Not that I wasn't happy to have a clean car, but it's just car washes add up after a while. So basically I would wait until I would get flagged for cleanliness a couple times in a row. And then I would get the car washed because the money was just not there to justify doing it as much as often.
Right.
So what about you guys? Did you find, I don't know how long you've been driving, but if you were driving for a while, did you find your car maintenance and stuff changed a little bit as the rates went down?
Yeah, I can absolutely talk about that. Hey guys, another quick time now. I want to thank everyone that's in the live stream. We have, well, now we had 60 people. We're hovering around 60 plus people watching. Hey guys, if you can do something for us right now, if you're liking the live stream, if you can leave a quick like, thumbs up on the live stream, we really appreciate it, guys. We see a lot of you in here. Yeah, let's talk about that. As I started driving. Oh, another thing, guys, in the live chat, let us know the month and year you started driving. That'd be interesting to see. Is
that
October of, yeah, guys, month and year. Put that in the live chat right now. October of 2015. That was my start date with Uber. And I don't know about you guys, but when I first started, it was somewhat new to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and it was the 2010 Calibers is what I still drive. And I would hand wash that thing. I'm cleaning the windows in and out. I'm armor rolling everything, hand vacuum. I mean, the works on that. And I would do that more often than not when I would drive, probably at least once a week. I would drive weeknights and then definitely weekends. And there was pride in that. I was like, oh, here we go. We're driving Uber tonight. This is awesome. And I actually thought, I remember this, is like I'm the cool Uber car rolling up to the club or the restaurant because Uber was cool. Uber's this trendy thing. All the cars, a lot of them looked like perfectly detailed. It was a nice service, kind of stemming off of probably that black car service because, again, it was new to Pittsburgh, so there was a lot of that high-end marketing. But to bring this full circle, guys, is lower rates. Yeah, it's like, well, okay, I'm not really making crazy money as before. I'm not hitting $30+ an hour on fare because of surge. So yeah, it's like I'm not gonna wash this as frequently. Maybe I'll skip the vacuums as much as I used to. Yeah.
Yeah, Mark, did your driving or cleaning habits change at all?
No, because I just always like a clean car. So, I'm going to wash and scrub. It's kind of, I don't know. I'm kind of anal about that. I just like to have a really, really clean car. So I would keep it clean whether I was riding for Uber or not. But I would say I am not inclined to do it because I'm an Uber driver. But I don't know. I don't think it's changed my habits at all in that regard.
Good to hear. Hey, and here's everyone in the live chat. Thank you guys for doing that. Hey, and I just saw a like spike on the live chat, so I really appreciate it, guys. Leave it a like on the live chat.
Thank you. We
appreciate
love the
likes. Becky, February 2017, March of 16, June of 16, March of 14, January of 18, 2015. That's just to name a few. And for anyone watching the rebroadcast, you can see the live chat replay on the top right. That's what we're reading right now. Pretty cool.
Unless you're listening to this on Apple Music. In that case, yep. This is why Android devices are awesome.
In that case, go to Kevin's channel and subscribe so you can watch the rebroadcast.
Yeah. So
Subscribe
yeah,
to all our channels.
subscribe to everyone's channels, including Cecily, who I guess decided she just couldn't make it today.
Long meeting.
You're missing a good episode, Cecily. But yeah, all of our links will be below. My opinion is that I'm frankly amazed it took for me to come across an article like this, because of course when you lower the prices, you're going to attract the lower end of, I don't want to say the riffraff, because you know what, that's just not nice, but yeah, some of the people who might be a little bit more anal about their cars, the people who might be a little bit more professional, the people who might be a little bit more experienced, they are probably going to gradually leave because it's not worth their time to drive for this. And even if it is worth their time to drive for this, it might not be worth their time to do the things that you need to do to, keep the car as high quality as possible. I know there's probably other people who are listening to this who are going to venomously disagree with that. Like, hey, if it's a job, you do it. But the thing is, I mean, people do put more effort. I'm going to share another story about Disneyland. Guys, I know you have this like illusion that people are at Disneyland are happy to be working. They're not. They're really stressed. But on the days like holidays where you would get paid double time, everyone who works at Disneyland is in a significantly better mood and having a much better time at their job than any other day where they're making what they're usually making. And I think that has definitely reflected in Uber and Lyft in the long run, because I have to be honest, when I use Uber and Lyft, and I mainly use Lyft just because I don't see a lot of people who are, really all that happy to be doing what they're doing.
Something funny sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Something just funny to add to that is I remember talking to drivers on a message board, and they said something funny about being happy, I guess, to your last point, Kevin. They said, it's surprising the way it works. My customer service increases dramatically the higher the surge is. I thought that was
absolutely. It's like, at that point when I'm like on like a high surge, you want to go through the drive-through?
Yeah.
No problem. You want to listen to Ludacris? Yeah, no problem.
Ludacris.
Yeah, it's a rapper. Okay, you want to listen to Celine?
Yeah, I know who it is.
No problem. You want to hang your head out the window? Still not safe, but instead of saying like, no, don't do that, it's like, hey guys, that's really not safe. Can you bring it back in?
How about 5 people in your car?
No, that is still an absolute negative.
Nah. Hey, thanks to Driver Lady Pro, just dropped the $5 super chat. Thank you,
thank you, Driver Lady Pro. Well, anyway, we're gonna get to the Q&A now. I think we have a little bit of time for that, but we do have to open with one question, because this question was not asked during this particular broadcast. It was actually during a live stream that I did some other night, and they asked me this, and it was such an interesting question. It's like, oh, that is so gonna. I actually told them like, hey, sorry, I can't answer that now. We have to do this one during the podcast. And that question is, considering Lyft mimics Uber in every way, why doesn't Lyft have a Lyft Eats program?
Yes, that was the interesting question that I wanted to hear about. Why doesn't Lyft have? I mean, and
it's a very valid question, because they mimic Uber so much that they even recently announced they're going to start renting out electric scooters. I mean, how much more transparent can you be that they are totally aping the competition, and yet this one business division that Uber does that actually makes money and makes a lot of sense for Lyft to get into, they haven't done.
And guys, just so you know, Uber Eats in just, I don't know, what is it, 2 years or so of operation, became the biggest food delivery company, whatever you want to call it. I know, at least in the U.S. I don't know about the world.
Great.
Yeah, they are the biggest food delivery company in just the 2 years or so that they've been active. I think John Zimmer and his team at Lyft are, I think they're just focused on transportation. As simple as that sounds, I think they're just kind of spearheading transportation. for whatever realm that is. I know they're trying to do self-driving too, with Aptiv, BMWs. I don't know. I have not even heard any murmurs from like a food delivery option from Lyft.
Well, I suspect that this is one case where being a Johnny-come-lately would have quite a negative effect.
Yeah.
Because Uber has such a name, and like you said, they came out like gangbusters. They became the hottest thing since sliced bread. And restaurants do not want to sign up with 36 delivery services. And I think if they see Uber is strong in their town, Uber is working for them, why bring Lyft into the mix? And I wonder if it's not so much Lyft doesn't want to, but if they're realizing in some of the research, they'd have a really hard time getting a foothold.
Well, in all fairness, it's not like Uber's the only delivery. You have DoorDash, you have Postmates, you have Grubhub, which it's interesting. Grubhub is actually a publicly traded company. I think they're one of the only gig economy companies that you can actually invest your own money into. They're public. So,
well, that's my point. There are so many.
Right.
And I think maybe it's just a little tough for Lyft to get in there and say, geez, the piece of the pie at this point would be so slim. Let's concentrate on things that are going to give us a better return.
Although you'd think they'd maybe do it in like Canada, because I don't think there's too many of these in Canada, and they are in Canada. I don't know.
Yeah, but there's major cities in Canada that don't even have Lyft and Uber yet. I mean, major cities that don't have it. So they've still got to just get the ride service in before they start looking at delivery.
Yeah. I think they have. I think I saw some numbers that said they may have 30% market share in Rideshare now. But yeah, I agree with that, Mark. I think it's like, okay, do what we know to try to do it best, albeit copying Uber all the time. And they're not as aggressive with expansion. I mean, Uber's all over the world. Lyft, not so much. They've tried to partner with Didi in different countries, but a smaller scale. And I'm with you. I think it's not a good fit for them right now.
Although Lyft also makes, I think they lose a lot less money because they've been a lot more careful with their expansion.
I believe it, yeah.
So anyway, I actually just did not know. I had no answer for that. To me, that sounds like a good idea. Now that I've listened to you guys, it makes a little bit more sense why they would not do that. So anyway, okay, so that's the end of that one. So do our listeners who are listening to us live have any questions for us that might be interesting to answer? Yeah,
there's quite a few here. One of my favorite, of course, Chocolate Slayer asked about cargo, but also a question specifically about Uber and Lyft. Mr. John Craig Jr. says, is it possible for Uber to buy Lyft in the future? And then we had a question. Someone said, no, maybe the other way around. Any of those questions, if you guys want to talk about any of those.
It's possible, but there's antitrust regulations that would be of huge concern, I think. So, I mean, for all you people who are like watching like the Disney Fox merger, that thing is still up in the air, partially because Comcast is stepping in, but also because the government is really looking at the deal with a sharp eye. Like they're afraid that might create a monopoly. And I think we all agree that Disney buying Fox does not mean, like, there's other movie studios out there. So clearly it's not a true monopoly, but it gives them enough leverage that it could be a monopoly. If Uber or Lyft tried to buy each other, what other companies do you really have in many markets? That's actually why like a couple of the cable companies mergers got destroyed, because they found out in too many markets that created a total control. So I think that's why that wouldn't happen. I think that's why they've not even attempted to do it, because I mean, Uber doesn't even like the government looking at them for anything. They really don't want them looking under something for antitrust, which they're already accused of in the first place.
Yeah, 100% monopoly in most markets. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Mark, anything new to add to that one? Or
no, I think you guys pretty much covered it. I'm just impressed with the depth of and the scope of your analysis.
Hey,
Thanks. But but by the way, on a side note, screw the Fox and Disney deal. I don't want the X-Men back in the cinematic universe that badly. Okay, next question.
I'm looking for, hey guys,
Yeah, that was a non sequitur.
Guys, if you do
I just had to get that out there.
guys, if you do have any questions, post them right now in the live chat. We're going to field a few questions before we head out. I'm looking for questions that they're just kind of asking, like, hey, maybe Amazon would buy Uber. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about cargo. That was the only other question I see.
Well, what was the cargo question? Because it's interesting. I got an email from them today, so let's see what.
Well,
question.
I mean, Chocolate Slayer simply asked, "What about cargo?" Kevin, have you signed up? Are you a fan? Questions about it?
I've signed up, and by the way, folks, you can sign up through me through my referral link below. I am not on it yet because they are not in my market yet, but they desperately want to be in the market, so they're looking for people to sign up. It's a good idea. Here's the thing with cargo and Rapify. If you could, like, say, get cargo in there, and you're getting paid for people to take snacks. And then you have Rapify, so you're getting paid extra per mile for having an ad. And if you have Vugo, where you're getting paid for advertisements in your car, Rideshare would be a really, really profitable business, like super profitable. And I don't understand why these companies don't really take off for the most part. Like, our Uber, I guess my wonder is because, you see them kind of come and go. It looked very promising to make drivers more money. Didn't work out. Cargo, heard about that a long time ago. It's really struggled. Rapify seems like that should be a no-brainer. Like, why don't more people Rapify their cars? They're already driving them. You get money just for going to work, and yet they don't really take off. So I guess the bigger question is, why aren't they taking off?
Well,
like, why don't people sign up for them?
I'm going to have to disagree with you a little bit there. I do think cargo is doing very well. I don't think they're struggling. They actually just announced, I'm a big fan of cargo. Actually, was one of the early entrants to kind of sign up and test it in Pittsburgh, and I brought it here to San Diego as well. It gets used well. It gets used. It's probably an 80-20 split of drivers who like it versus drivers that don't. It's not really for them. They got $5.5 million in funding about 6 months ago. And they actually did just announce expansion. And a big expansion, I know a lot of drivers right now are listening to this podcast, either live or on the rebroadcast in California. They announced that the next expansion is coming to California.
Well, every time they send me an email, it's always worded like, well, we want to come to California. We really do, but we need more people to sign up before we can do it. So that kind of paints a slightly different picture, but that's good for them, though, if they actually are expanding the way you say they are.
Yes.
So
yeah, I believe they should be coming live. And again, I don't have all access to exact timeline, but and the drivers that I've signed up myself, I have been seeing more and more becoming active versus on the wait list.
So then that does leave the other things. Why don't the other things succeed when it can clearly help the drivers? I guess we might not, because if Uber's not approving cars with your car wrapped, that doesn't help as much. But
well, you know what you do? Move to Wisconsin, because we don't have inspectors. We don't have inspections. They just want to see a picture of it. So take a picture of your car, then go and get it wrapped.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, okay. So yeah, but otherwise, my opinions on cargo, I really like the idea behind all of them. I really do. It could I mean, heck, if I got all of them up and running, which I always seem to be struggling with that, then maybe I wouldn't be griping so much about the rates all the time, and I would just, as many people tell me to do, I would just shut up and drive.
Well, that's the exact strategy that I have trying to build right now, and that's why I was disappointed to hear about Rapify, because, like you mentioned, Kevin, driving rideshare with cargo with Rapify, guys, for anyone that listens to me on my channel is talking about diversifying income. You're investing the same amount of time, but you're getting paid 3 different ways. So yeah, the Rapify thing, it's kind of disappointing to hear about that.
Yeah. So okay, do we have any other questions?
Let's see.
Hopefully a good one.
Yeah, I have one here. Let's see. Yeah, questions about advertisements here. I think we touched on it a bit. Driver Steve says, I was wondering about putting advertisements on my roof. But really quick, because Kevin, I know you're going to like this one perhaps. Doc Rocks was asking, Star Wars, thumbs up or thumbs down?
I assume he's talking about Solo. Well, I get to see it tomorrow because I've kind of been in and out of the hospital the past few days. So that's why you haven't seen a lot of videos recently. But I'm going to see it tomorrow, and in a future live stream, I'll answer that question.
Look for a review. There you go.
Yeah, and you can always check out my movie reviews at icritic.net, which I'm starting to write again. It's amazing that when you're immobilized, you kind of find your passion for writing again.
Are we promoting our other activities now?
check out his Average Me channel.
I would love to drive people over to the Average Me channel. I just did a great story on the Lobster Boy murders.
That was a fun one. Yeah, that was a real fun one. And hey, you've been able to plug this Average Me channel 3 times on this podcast.
I'm going to keep doing it.
There we go. Go
ahead. Go ahead. I don't.
You know how many? Do you know how many subscribers I have in that channel? 277, and I have 150 videos.
Well,
let's get that up, guys.
Well, that makes me feel good about my other channel having a lot more than that. But yeah, check out Average Me. So, any final questions?
You know, we do have quite a few. I don't know if we have time, guys, for everybody, but if you're watching this in the rebroadcast or live, post any other questions we don't get to in the comments below. I'll pick one more because, again, I know we're running out of time here. Let's pick a – There's an interesting one here, and I kind of want to – let's see. You know what? Both of these questions are by Driver631. And there's only one I wanted to focus on because I'm actually interested myself. The first one was, do they deliver weed in California? Yes, they do actually. I don't use it as a customer, but they do. The second one, this is an interesting question. Kevin, what does flame responsible mean?
I tell people all the time that's the either the $500 a month Patreon answer or the 10,000 subscriber question. So until we get to one of those goals, mum's the word. You know,
and I like that you didn't give it away there because I remember you fielded that question some time ago and you didn't really give too much away. So I like that, guys. If Kevin the Apptrepreneur gets to 10K subscribers or somebody drops a much appreciated Patreon donation, then we will know for sure.
You know, or a bunch of Patreon locations. That's actually one of the goals. $500 is I actually make a video explaining what flame responsible means.
There we go. We like cliffhangers.
Should we do one more question? I don't know if that was a fair one to end on.
Let's see. One more question, guys. Well, here's a good one. Here's a good one as it pertains to rideshare. Carly's Kruger asks, should a driver rent or not rent?
And
I guess now, what options do we have now? Because exchange leasing is no longer an option, right?
There are some rideshare rental companies out there.
Fleet, maybe.
I can't think of the names right now. Boy, it's a shame Peterson isn't with us. He actually is very familiar with this area. Well, from what I know, and I don't, because I haven't looked up on the rideshare vehicle rental things, I'm kind of the opinion that if you own your vehicle outright and are not making payments on it, then it's probably better to do that and put as much money as you can aside for the next car. But that's my personal opinion. What do you guys think?
Mark, you want to take that one first? Mark?
Yeah. I'm not real big on the whole renting and leasing idea. Personally, you treat your car well and you do routine maintenance. You don't have to go overboard with this. A good car can last a long, long, long time and pay you back dividends. I'm not a big proponent of renting or leasing in order to do rideshare.
Yeah, well, and it should be noted, I will probably add with that said, that if you're leasing your vehicle, then no, don't do rideshare because there's a limit to how many miles you can have before you start paying per the mile. I'm just not sure about some of these companies that rent out specifically to rideshare people. But yeah, if you're leasing your car, then it's a bad idea overall.
So hey guys, we have a lot of people in the audience right now. We just had Terry Tips join us.
Oh, hey Terry, how you doing?
And we had Driver Lady Pro drop a $5 super chat saying you are awesome. And then Slavic and Pay Drivers Fair Net donated a $10 super chat.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Slavic. Those are always appreciated.
Thanks. Yeah. Unique channel name there. Good stuff. So yeah, let me take that question. Rental or not? To my understanding, you guys, if you're renting a car for rideshare, you're going to pay a weekly, usually, maybe monthly, but I think weekly as well, operational cost. It covers everything, or most everything. Don't quote me on that because I don't use a rental. As long as the numbers make sense, that's a short answer. I would say, okay, what are my operational expenses? I mean, this is basic business 101, right, guys? What are my expenses? How much do I intend on earning for the time I invested? Is it worth the time invested? How much am I clearing? Consider taxes. And if it makes sense, I would. But, I'd have to run the numbers.
In all fairness, if you do know that you fully intend to drive 40 or more hours a week, then yeah, maybe a rental would make more sense so you're not putting too much wear on your own car. So yeah, I think there's pros and cons to both. That's actually not a simple yes or no answer. And I know people hate it when you say like, well, you really got to look at your own numbers. But I mean, guys, you got to look at your own numbers. That's how you're going to know for sure.
Yep.
So, all right. So wow, those are some pretty good questions. So anyway, I think that's a good place to end. We will meet again when Uber screws up next, or maybe a week later. Who knows? Because they screw up a lot. So anyway, I'd like to thank your driver Mike for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd also like to thank Int and the Average Me channel for being here.
Oh, touche.
Yeah.
And thanks for watching, everybody.
Yes, remember, you can subscribe to all of our channels below. You can read some of the articles we talked about below, including the New Surge blog post. I've got a funny feeling that we're going to be returning to New Surge in a month once people really have some serious time with it, because I think that's when the pros and the cons are really going to show up. But for the time being, we'll leave it as it is. So thank you, everyone, for listening, whether it be on YouTube, iTunes, or Google Music. If you can like below, you can still comment. Any questions you post, we will try to bring them up in the next podcast. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.